Welcome back. The Office of the Prime Minister, in partnership with the Khomas Regional Council, are currently collecting data to measure the vulnerability of Namibians in relation to livelihood, food and nutrition. We are now joined telephonically by the Khomas Regional Governor, McLeod-Katjirua. Governor, good evening and welcome to the Daily Roundup. Governor,
good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. You are far from your mic.
Well, I'll try to project so that you can hear me a bit better.
I hardly can't hear you.
Well, just to start with, briefly talk to us about the importance, of this exercise that commenced on the 19th of this month, and I understand it runs until the 7th of July.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Thanks for having me on air. Let me also greet the viewers and listeners who are listening from me. Yes, it is true. We are ongoing from the 19th June to the 7th of July. And that is it's about the vulnerability data collection. Yes, the Office of the OPM, in collaboration with the Khomas Regional Council, are planning to collect data that will be used to monitor the vulnerability of the Namibians in relation mainly to livelihood, food, and nutrition. And I would also want the viewers to take note that normally this is a yearly program that is ongoing yearly. And also, this vulnerability, livelihood vulnerability assessment is in actual fact to analyze and serve as a tool to inform policy decision makers and making with regards to livelihood and food and nutrition security in our country. And as I said, after this study has been done, compilation is done, it is then sent to cabinet, of which then the cabinet must approve and create some intervention. That is then to be shared with the regional council, and the intention is to share it with the regional council, who would then take it to the disaster risk management, and that is also for them to further look at the intervention as well as the implementation at the constituency and regional levels. Now, this study definitely it has started on a date that you have set. Khomas region started as well, and we have 3 groups of enumerators that are concurrently working on this program. But now remember, this program, in case of maybe the Khomas region that I'm speaking to, it's looking at different categories in our region. And these are the people that we want to regard as most vulnerable in the region. That is people living in the informal settlement. That is people living with HIV and are on antiretroviral virus drugs, not forgetting the TB drugs. Looking at the homeless people. I'm mentioning the homeless people because one day I remember there was a question which was asking, why is Khomas region doing this analysis in mainly 2 of our constituencies, Windhoek West and Windhoek East? But I have always been saying, yes, there are pockets, and this in most cases is in these 2 constituencies where you find people living under bridges, and street children and the rest. So there is no way we can exclude those 2 regions. Obviously, there are some pockets where you find people who are homeless. Equally, we would also want to take into account the gender-based violence victims, the rape, the abused children, women, as well as men and boys. Of course, we also have to admit that we cannot leave the boy out because in most cases, they are also saying these people are being abused by their partners. And obviously, this survey equally will help to direct any development in the provision of especially food, water, and obviously remembering now and knowing that we are going to have a very serious drought in the country, it will help us in us to to have data regarding to where mostly we are hit with this drought.
Thank you.
So these are some of the issues that I really wanted to look at. And
Thank
these
you.
are the factors and categories that we also want to look at and address them as much and as possible as we could.
You mentioned earlier, Governor, obviously this exercise is to bring interventions to these issues. So what interventions will be put in place once this vulnerability index
I
is...
can't hear you. Can you ask again?
Let me repeat myself. You mentioned earlier the importance of this exercise is to intervene in these matters. So what are some of the interventions that will be put into place once this vulnerability index has been established?
Yeah, definitely the vulnerability index will tell us where vulnerability is mainly exercised and felt, and the intervention will be like provide food for the needy, provide water for the needy, and also if need be, Khomas Regional Council, we have been providing programs like food, no, not food, but more mainly, we are providing a blanket for the winters to make sure that we cater for those that are homeless. And we should also be able to mainly provide food that will cater for the food and nutrition that we are speaking about too. And if these are provided, I'm sure we probably lack that data that can direct us and tell us directly where our attention is needed.
You mentioned the reason behind the two regions that were chosen for this exercise, but of course this is not an issue that is only confined to these two regions. It might be concentrated, within these regions. So, are there any plans to further continue this exercise with the other parts of the country?
Yeah, if I would have heard you well, because I hardly cannot hear you. I think the intention is work to be done. It's a very good exercise that as a country we need to do, because it will inform us as to where our attention is mainly needed. And that's why I'm saying we have got plans and programs in place, and maybe you may not even leave the unemployment, because some of these, for example, when you speak about the homeless, why would somebody become homeless? It's simply because this person is looking for a greener pasture and they end up at wrong places. So definitely once government got informed and they are able now to direct their intervention correctly, so in the right manner, to the right affected Namibians, and mainly we are speaking to food and nutrition in order to address the livelihood of our people.
Governor, your final remarks this evening?
Yes, my final remark is that I'm humbly urging to inform Khomas residents and communities in our 10 constituencies. This exercise is happening in all our 10 constituencies, to at least give priority to this exercise. It is meant for us, and it will definitely address our vulnerability. The other issue also to alert the residents and the communities is that they must not fear so much, because the officials that will be conducting this program as enumerators will be identifiable with wearing T-shirts written national, written that sorry, my dear. The Namibian vulnerability analysis, and they will also be wearing some caps. So we know sometimes people are afraid, not knowing who is coming to them, and are these people maybe not making use of this program, but mainly with that identification of the Namibia vulnerability assessment and analysis written on their T-shirt as well as their caps, we should actually be able to have them and allow them to speak to us, so that whatever our responses would then advance the exercise that we are carrying out.
Thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you so much for joining us, Governor.
Thank you so much, too. Thanks for looking for me, and thanks for the listeners.
That was the Khomas Regional Governor, Laura McLeod-Katjirua, speaking to us on the line. Let's take a brief break and look at our further local news roundup.